This is Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky. We are watching Grandmaster Alexey Sarana taking on the world champion Magnus Carlsen, the 2022 FIDE World Blitz Championship. The world champion there carefully adjusting his pieces and taking a sip of water. The players waiting for the arbiter to announce the start of the game, and there's the handshake. Magnus starts Alexey's clock, and 1d4 by Sarana, who is considered an opening expert with both white and black. Carlsen will have to be cautious in the opening, and cautious he is. That is the order of the day. A Queen's Gambit declined, and Alexey Sarana essaying a Carlsbad variation where white takes on d5 quickly and develops the bishop not to g5, which is more standard, but to f4, and that's already got the world champion thinking. Bishop f4 does seem like a more modest way to develop the bishop. Sarana dodging the main theoretical continuations and essentially inviting a trade of dark squared bishops. Magnus delaying the development of his dark squared bishop. First, he brings his light squared bishop out to f5, and what an ambitious response. Instantly executed by Sarana. f3. Normally the knight jumps onto that square, but Alexey preparing either a central expansion with e4 or, more likely, crazy ambitious kingside play with g2, g4, and perhaps even h2, h4. This is clearly some home cooking for Alexey Sarana. A great line for blitz, and he's already up 40 seconds. Carlsen says, no, you're not getting your pawn to g4. He stops it with h5. And Alexey develops his light squared bishop. The bishops are now off the board, and now e4 is a lot likelier than g4. But Carlsen continues to develop inventively knight a6. He's bringing the knight not to b4, but back towards c7, and he might plant it on e6 in preparation for Alexey pushing his pawn to e4, which does seem pretty likely here. Sarana also has to decide which way he's going to castle. Castling queenside would be the ambitious continuation. Castling kingside would be a little bit safer, but first he pushes the pawn into the center. I like how Alexey Sarana has handled the opening. f3 was a really, really interesting idea. How is Magnus Carlsen going to respond? He's going to trade the pawns on e4 and bring his knight over to e6, develop the dark squared bishop to e7. Black's center is non-existent, but his development is pretty compact, and that knight on e6 is exerting pressure on Alexey Sarana's pawn on d4. h3 making some luft for the king, and Carlsen, despite the state of that pawn on h5, castling kingside and completing his development, and the battle is very clearly going to revolve around control of the center. Can Sarana ensure that his central pawns are well protected? And can he keep that d4 pawn away from the pressure exerted by Black's queen and Black's knight? And Carlsen might try to get a rook to d8, and that is exactly what he's doing. Queen b6, e5 by Sarana, pushing his e-pawn up, and the knight sticks itself onto that square weakened by Alexey Sarana's last move. I wasn't sure about e5. That might have been a little bit hasty. The knights are traded, and look at that knight on e6. That knight is a beast. It puts pressure on the d4 pawn. It keeps Black's center stable. And now Magnus Carlsen does have control of the center with his pawn landing on d5 and the c-file opening up. That queen on b6 is also doing a great deal. And the clock situation has now flipped. Alexey Sarana falls below 2 minutes. He's got to find a way to defend the b2 pawn. He could try to sacrifice it and lure Black's queen into b2, but that doesn't seem too advisable. And yeah, that is exactly what he does. Knight to g3. But isn't there knight takes d4? There are tactics there with a bishop e7 to c5 pin against White's queen. But I think knight takes d4 can be met with bishop to e3. Carlsen instead defending the h5 pawn and restricting White's knight. But he weakens the dark squares and now sacrificing an exchange with queen takes b2. And that is an incredibly, incredibly risky continuation. Magnus Carlsen leaving the rook on f8, allowing Sarana to capture it, and his queen on b2 could get into some trouble. And Alexey Sarana seems surprised. He's taking his time, trying to figure out the proper way to react. Rook b1 here, attacking the queen, and that rook is going to land on b7 with great effect. The world champion's decision to sack the exchange there might have been a little bit too risky. Where is the queen going to go? Carlsen takes the pawn on a2, and Sarana captures on b7, hitting the bishop on e7. Black's king is also in mortal danger. If Carlsen moves his bishop away, then there might be a devastating tactic with the f-rook capturing on f7 and the queen infiltrating to g6. That could result in checkmate in the blink of an eye. Carlsen might have to trade queens, and he does with queen a3. Alexey Sarana clearly in the driver's seat. But players, they often feel so nervous when they sense that a victory against the world champion is at hand. Sarana's time management is excellent. He's taking his time. Will he trade queens here? And he does. Queens are traded on a3. White is the only one with winning chances. And oh my goodness, the bishop is trapped! The bishop is trapped! And Carlsen, he was about to play bishop e7, blundering the bishop, but the bishop has nowhere to go, and he smiles at the camera. The bishop is trapped, and he resigns the game. What a display by Alexey Sarana as he punishes the world champion's speculative exchange sacrifice. A shocking defeat. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the link in the playlist for more of these videos. Thank you for watching.